One of the easiest things to preserve each year is strawberries for the freezer so that you can have them year long. And today I'm going to show you a couple of techniques for getting them in there to maintain the quality. To do it, however, we're a little bit ahead of season in the garden, so I'm using some store-bought strawberries. So they're a little bit different than hopefully what you're going to be getting. And one thing I will tell you is that because these aren't fresh grown and local, they don't have the developed flavor, and so these would really not be the best strawberries to put in your freezer, because whenever you put something in your freezer monthly, you pay that electric bill, you pay for the maintenance of that. So why pay for the maintenance of something that wasn't top quality to begin with? So go local, either your own garden or from the farmers market in your area as much as you can, or a U-pick field. All right, now got a couple of ways we're going to do these, and the first one I'm going to start is a sugar pack. Now the sugar that we're going to put on here is going to draw the water out of the strawberry, and that's going to cover it and coat it. It's going to maintain the flavor better, so you get a more sweet, better flavor, particularly with a berry like this that's not that good to start with. Now we want to cut them down into sizes that are similar in size. So if you'll notice, as all strawberries and all plants do, we have a wide assortment here. So we want to get them down to something that's going to be somewhat similar to the smallest one. So you're just going to cut them down, just eyeball it, get them down somewhere near where you should have it. And then you also are going to weigh them. When you're doing home freezing and home canning, it's a good idea to have a scale. We want, or you can also measure these, but about 1 1/3 pounds of strawberries, or about a quart. And for every 1 1/3 pounds, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And we're going to sprinkle that over the top and stir that in. Now this is a fair amount of sugar. It's very similar to what you get when you buy the sweetened strawberries in the supermarket. Again, this is going to pull that moisture out. An alternative method would be to actually make a syrup up ahead of time, again using sugar, and pour that over the strawberries once they're in the container. You would think a lot of people are interested in reducing the amount of sugar in their diet, so they would use a sugar substitute. It won't accomplish the same thing, because the sugar substitutes are not the same chemical as sugar itself, and so you don't get the same effect. So in order for us to get some time for this to draw this out, we're going to let that sit for about 15 minutes, and that will draw the liquid out. And while that's taking place, I'm going to talk about a dry pack, which is one of the common methods that a lot of people are using now to keep the sugar content down. It also achieves something else in that you get the berries individually frozen so that you can use them for a lot of different things. Now, I have some already prepared, but it's very simple to do this. We want to wash the berries well, and then take a paring knife and cut in so that you get most of that core out, as well as just the green top. You may want to rinse them again when you're done in case you get some little bits of seed. If they're small, you can leave them whole. You can cut them in half. These work really well for things like smoothies later. They're going to freeze into individual ice cubes. There are other little tools you can use to do this. This is what we used to call a chicken plucker. It's used to remove the feathers off a chicken, also called a strawberry capper. So there's different ways that can be done. I've got some already ready to go, and again, we get the variation in size, but we're simply spreading out a piece of parchment, and I'm going to cut some so they're closer to the same size so that they freeze and thaw at the same pace. Putting either a piece of parchment, or in my case a piece of wax paper. You could use freezer paper on here, just something that the strawberries won't stick to. And lay them out individually, right side up, upside down, it doesn't matter. There's no sugar involved here, and so you would think that this would be a healthier way to do it. But what we find is that you lose some of the nutrients during the thaw, so you want to eat them when they're still partially frozen. These are then going to, just like this, going to go into the freezer on a shelf, so make sure you've got room in your freezer so that you can lay that. Also, different freezers of different shapes will hold different size trays, so make sure you get a tray that's going to fit into your freezer. Once these are frozen hard as a rock or hard as an ice cube, we're going to pull them out. And at this point, it's simply a matter of bagging them up so that you can take out the number you would like to use at any one time. Now, because there's no sugar on these do freeze more solid than the ones with sugar in them. So you're going to find that these are going to take longer to thaw. But if you're going to make a smoothie, you can use these in place of ice cubes. Once they're frozen hard and solid, you want to bag them up individually. You can either use a freezer bag like I'm doing, and that works really well with this kind of thing because there's no chance that it's going to leak. Make sure you get all the air out of it. Have it labeled with what it is and the date you put it in the freezer, and these are ready to go back into the freezer. Lay them a little bit flat there. Since they're already frozen, if you had more than one package, you could go ahead and stack them up right away and get them in the freezer. For the other berries, you have several options. You could use a freezer bag there. You could use any kind of a solid freezer container. You can use a home canning jar. The thing you need to remember when you're doing those is that you have to leave an appropriate amount of head space. And so I'm going to go and check and make sure that our berries have developed enough juice so that we can proceed and show you how to do that. After about 15-20 minutes, you notice there's still some sugar that's down there, and that's okay. But we've also gotten a nice syrup that's formed, and that will help protect the eating quality of our fruit. Now, what you want to pack it in is the amount that you want to pack is sort of dependent on how much you're going to want to use at one meal. Unlike the dry pack where you're able to pull out one or two, here you pretty much are going to have to thaw the whole thing and use it at one time or one recipe. So if you have a recipe that calls for sweetened strawberries, or you know you usually eat a certain amount at a meal, that's the amount that you want to pack in one container. Now I'm going to go ahead and pack. Now these, you can use simply a large spoon to scoop them in, doing it this way, or you can use a jar funnel, and that makes it a little bit neater if you're doing a lot of them. Simply by putting that over the top, that works really well as well. Now we're going to use enough in our container that we have the jar completely filled, but we also want to leave enough room for them to expand when they're frozen, because these have some liquid on them. That expansion is going to occur. So you probably want to leave about a ½ of an inch of headspace at least on the top of them, and divide, if it's more than one container, divide the liquid over the ones that you have. Now one of the things that we like to do is try and press down and fill up all that space, because if you have dry air around it, then you're apt to get freezer burn. So what I recommend is that you take a piece of wax paper, parchment paper, and crumple that up in the top before you put the lid on, and then put the lid on and tighten it down, and then this is going to go in your freezer. Again, use some kind of a tape or some kind of a Sharpie or something that will allow you to label that, so you know, particularly important when you put it in. These will keep 6 to 12 months, depending on the kind of freezer you have, the temperature your freezer is. It should be at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The kind of freezer, if you have a self-defrosting freezer, you're going to be looking more at the low end, the 8 months as opposed to the 12 months, because in order for that freezer to be self-defrosting, the temperature warms up a little bit, defrosts the outside, and then freezes down again. Those temperature fluctuations affect the food quality and the nutritional quality of that food in the freezer too. So if you're in the market for a freezer, getting one that is not self-defrosting, while it may be a little bit more work, will keep your food in better quality for a longer period of time. Freezing strawberries is a great way to extend the season, allows you to have that fantastic flavor throughout the year without the expense and the option of paying extra to have things shipped in from a long distance to get lower quality. I hope if you have any extra strawberries, this is something you're going to try this summer. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.